My name's Tom. I'm 47. I work in logistics in Greensboro, North Carolina. I move other people's things, freight, boxes, back orders, last-minute deliveries. I move their weight so they don't have to feel it. I used to think I was good at building things. Not with wood or steel, not with hammer and nail, but with sacrifice. Quiet effort. Consistency. Show up. Say yes. Pick up the pieces. That's what I was raised on. 8 years ago, I married Linda. I thought I was building a family. She had twins, Sarah and Jason. They were 11 the first time they looked through me at the dinner table. Not mean. Not cruel. Just distant. Like I was a substitute teacher whose name they'd never bother learning. Their dad, Paul, lived in Texas. He was the kind of ghost who liked to leave fingerprints but not footprints. One birthday text a year. Maybe a call on Christmas Eve. A gift, sometimes late, impersonal, expensive enough to pretend it meant something. But the rest was me. Therapy for Sarah when the panic attacks started. Basketball fees when Jason got good enough for travel teams. Braces. New shoes. College visits. SAT tutors. Field trips. ER visits. Nightmares. Homework. I didn't come in swinging to be their real dad. I wasn't trying to be Paul 2.0. I just didn't walk away. That was all. And for a while I thought that would be enough. I kept a spreadsheet. Not out of resentment, at least not at first. Just necessity. Linda and I both worked full-time. 50-hour weeks, sometimes more. She pulled doubles at the hospital, and I picked up logistics runs after hours. Nights blurred into weekends, and I learned how to sleep with my boots on. But the numbers mattered. You can't guess your way through a family. You have to track the outflow or drown in it. I had a tab for every year. Color-coded. Food, clothing, school fees, medical, emergencies, unexpected. Over 8 years, I spent just over $70,000 on the kids. That's not counting groceries or rent. Just the extras. The things I didn't have to do but did anyway. Sarah called me Tom. Jason barely called me anything. And Linda. She called me our rock. But only when it was convenient. Only when something needed fixing, paying, driving, or solving. I kept telling myself, respect comes slow. They'll grow up. They'll look back and realize who was in the stands when no one else showed up. Who answered the phone at 3 a.m. when Sarah forgot where she parked after a concert. Who drove Jason to basketball camp in Tennessee because Paul's excuse that year was flights were too expensive. I stayed. That was my role. I stayed. But then senior year arrived. Sarah had dreams, big ones. She wanted to study design in Manhattan. Private school, glossy brochures, dorms with skyline views. Jason wanted LA or maybe San Diego, marketing, maybe film, or maybe just sunshine and distance. They spoke about it with certainty, like it was already theirs. Like the price tag didn't matter. I called a family meeting. Rare event that, the 4 of us at one table, phones off. I printed out projections. I came prepared like I would for a stakeholder pitch, charts, line items, cost comparisons. I'd done the work. Scholarships would cover most in-state tuition. We could manage that with part-time jobs, maybe a small loan. But out-of-state, private, that would bury them. $160,000 minimum. That's before flights, books, housing spikes, all the variables you can't spreadsheet away. I was calm. I was respectful. I laid it out like my own father had once done for me. Not a no, but a boundary. That's when it happened. Sarah rolled her eyes. That's between us and Mom, she said. You don't need to get involved. Jason didn't look up. Yeah, maybe just don't butt in. The words weren't screamed. They weren't violent. But they were absolute. Final. Delivered with that cold teenage precision that cuts deeper than any yell. And they didn't just reject my opinion, they erased my presence. Linda froze mid-sip of her tea. Her mouth twitched like she might intervene. But she didn't. She stayed silent. And that silence was louder than anything they'd said. I sat there stunned. Not angry. Not yet. Just empty. 8 years. Thousands of dollars. Missed vacations. Missed promotions. Sleepless nights. holding Sarah's hair back when she got food poisoning on a school trip, spending an entire Saturday fixing the transmission on Jason's car, driving 6 hours to a college tour only for him to spend the whole trip texting his friends. All of it erased by one sentence, and by the silence that followed it. In that moment, I realized something I had refused to see for years. I wasn't part of this family. I was a utility, an account number, a name on the insurance, someone to be tolerated until the check cleared. I looked at Linda. She looked down. That was the crack. The first one I couldn't ignore. The one that spread through the foundation like rot in the beams of an old house. I had thought I was building something permanent. But permanence doesn't come from effort alone. It has to be returned. A family isn't built by one set of hands. It's held together by acknowledgement, by respect, and I had been living without it for a very long time. I stood up slowly, collected the papers. No one stopped me. No one said, "Wait, we didn't mean it like that." No one apologized. Not then. They didn't even look up. That night, I lay in bed beside Linda, eyes open in the dark. The ceiling fan ticked above us, each rotation like a second lost. She didn't say a word. Neither did I. What was there to say? We were in the same bed, but the space between us was a canyon. I thought about the spreadsheet, every cell, every receipt. I thought about the way Sarah looked at me like I was interfering, the way Jason agreed without a flicker of guilt, the way Linda said nothing. I realized then that I'd been paying rent in a house where I wasn't welcome. The next morning I woke before dawn, made coffee, opened the spreadsheet. For the first time, I scrolled to the bottom and typed one new word in bold black font. Enough. I used to believe that breaking points were loud. Slammed doors, shattered plates, some kind of thunderclap moment you could point to later and say, there, that's where everything fell apart. But mine came quietly. The morning after the kids told me to stay out of it. I packed my lunch the same way I always did. Turkey sandwich, an apple, coffee in the dented thermos I'd had since my 20s. Routine, that's what kept me steady. Routine, not gratitude. Linda sat at the kitchen table scrolling through her phone. She didn't look up, not even when I said good morning. I realized then that silence was her shield, and I'd let her use it for years. Silence when the twins ignored me. Silence when Paul forgot holidays. Silence when the bills landed on our counter and she slid them my way like it was natural. I left for work before the sun rose. The roads were empty, the sky a pale bruise. I kept replaying last night. The eye roll, the dismissal, the way Linda froze like a statue carved from guilt and convenience. I kept thinking, if they don't want my help, then why am I breaking myself to give it? But the real moment, the one that snapped whatever hope I had left, came 12 hours later. I walked in after a long shift, boots soaked from the rain. The house was lit. Voices floated from the dining room. For a second, a pathetic second, I thought they might be waiting for me. That maybe Linda had talked to them. Maybe someone had realized the weight of what they'd said. But when I stepped inside, they went quiet. 3 plates on the table. Not 4. Linda looked up, startled, as if she'd been caught stealing. Sarah kept eating. Jason didn't lift his head. Her voice came out thin. We didn't know when you'd be home. A lie. My schedule hadn't changed for years. I said nothing. Hung my jacket. Walked past them to the kitchen. Poured myself cereal because the pot of chili still steaming on the stove apparently wasn't meant for me. That tiny thing, that stupid tiny thing, was the moment the foundation cracked all the way through. Not because of the food. Not because of my empty chair. But because none of them noticed the way I stood there, bowl in hand, swallowing more than cold milk. They just let me disappear. After dinner, I sat at my desk. The spreadsheet glowed back at me, its neat rows suddenly mocking. I scrolled through 8 years of transactions, braces, sports camps, therapy, prom outfits, gas money, field trips. Line after line of proof that I had tried, that I had shown up, that I had carried this family like a pack mule climbing a mountain no one else acknowledged. I hovered over the 529 accounts. 2 of them. I remembered opening them. So proud. like a father setting stones into the foundation of a future he was sure he'd be part of. But I wasn't part of their future. They had told me so. I didn't rage, didn't tremble, just exhaled slowly, the kind of breath a man releases when he's done pretending. I changed the beneficiaries. Not to myself. Not out of spite. Just away from them. Away from the bottomless pit I'd mistaken for a family. Maybe someday for grandkids. Maybe never. It didn't matter. What mattered was that for the first time in 8 years, I made a decision only for myself. When I closed the account window, something in me settled. Not peace. Not relief. Just a cold clarity. I was done. The next morning I told Linda the truth. I'm not putting another dollar into their college plans. Her face didn't twist in anger, didn't flare in shock. She just nodded, slow and quiet, like a woman who had been expecting this sentence for years and was relieved someone finally said it. You're right, she whispered. They need to understand there are consequences. It shouldn't have comforted me, but it did a little. Or maybe I was desperate enough to take any fragment of alignment. We stood in the kitchen like strangers who shared a mortgage. Then the kids found out. Took only a week. Sarah burst into the house after school, the door slamming against the wall. Tears streaked her face, raw and red. You changed my account. You took my college money. She screamed, holding her phone like evidence of betrayal. I stayed seated on the couch. Calm. Too calm. That money was for your college when we were a team, I said. When I was allowed to have a say. Jason appeared behind her, jaw clenched. This is messed up, man. You can't just take back what you promised. I looked at him, at the boy I cheered for in cold bleachers. I didn't take anything back. I just stopped giving. Linda stepped between us, hands trembling. For the first time in years, she didn't shield them. She didn't soften my edges or translate my silence. She looked at the twins. Our twins, I used to think, and said quietly, You hurt him. You don't get to pretend you didn't. But they didn't hear her. Kids never hear the quiet truth until it screams. That night, an email arrived from Paul. Paul, the ghost. The father of DNA but not devotion. He wrote, As a man, you should understand the importance of education. I can contribute $400 a month. Maybe you could reconsider and keep helping? That sentence, as a man, nearly made me laugh. He had spent 18 years outsourcing manhood to me, and now he wanted to negotiate? I forwarded the email to Linda with 2 words. Your move. She replied to him within minutes. You've missed their entire lives. Your $400 doesn't buy you a say. If you want to help, send it directly to the schools. Tom is done. I stared at the message, feeling something strange fill the hollow inside me. Not love. Not vindication. Something sharper. Something like the beginning of a boundary. Later, in bed, Linda reached for my arm. I didn't pull away, but I didn't move toward her either. We lay there in a quiet that felt like the whole house was exhaling with us. I realized then that the break hadn't happened tonight. It had been happening for years. Slowly, silently, like water rotting the underside of a porch until one day the whole thing collapses under your weight. This was just the moment I stopped holding it up. The twins slept down the hall. The house stood still around us. And for the first time since I walked into their lives, I let myself ask the question I'd been avoiding. If they didn't want me involved, why had I been fighting so hard to stay? I didn't have the answer yet, but I had the first piece of truth. I was done paying for the privilege of being ignored. The next few days passed like dust settling in an empty room. No outbursts, no slammed doors, just cold glances and the kind of silence that doesn't heal, the kind that calcifies. Sarah stopped speaking to me entirely. Jason floated through the house like a tenant waiting for eviction. He kept his earbuds in, barely lifting his head when I walked by. Linda moved carefully, like every step risked triggering something fragile. But the line had been drawn. I wasn't crossing it. I'd been told I was not a parent, that my opinion didn't matter, that I was just some man married to their mother. So I took them at their word. I made myself small in the spaces they'd already decided I didn't belong. No more college planning. No more rides. No more unsolicited advice. I was done offering what they resented receiving. Then Sarah's college portal updated. She hadn't told anyone the date. I doubt she even expected the system to reflect the change so quickly. But there it was, a recalculated expected family contribution, /down. An automated red flag. A prompt for verification. Her screams shattered the silence like a dropped plate. She ran to Linda first, waving her phone in one hand, sobbing through every word. They think I don't have funding. They said it's wrong. That I need to resubmit. What happened? I stayed in the kitchen washing a pan. Jason walked in a few minutes later, his face pale. Is this for real? He asked. You just pulled the money? After everything? I didn't turn. Just dried the pan and said, that money was mine. So yes, I stopped pretending I owed it to people who don't see me as family. He stared at me, waiting, maybe, for me to soften. But I didn't. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger had burned off like fog. All that was left now was clarity. And exhaustion. An email came the next day. From the financial aid office. Confused about the sudden drop in contribution. Asking if the account had been compromised. If there'd been a mistake. Linda responded. Not me. Tom is not their biological father. But he was the one funding their college. He has chosen to step back. That was it. One line. Flat. Honest. Brutal. Sarah found it by accident. I don't know how. She must have checked Linda's email or seen a notification. But that night, she stormed into the living room like a hurricane with nowhere to go. You told them you're not my real dad? She shouted. What the hell, Mom? You just let them think he's a stranger? Linda sat on the couch, motionless. You made him one. That stunned Sarah. Her fury evaporated, replaced with something worse, confusion. She turned to me, her voice cracking. You really just gave up on us? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Then came the message from Paul. I saw it before Linda did. Her inbox was still open on the laptop. He had written directly to me, not even through her. Tom, I know we've had our differences, but as a man, I'm asking you to reconsider. Education is everything. I can contribute $400 a month. Just until Sarah finds her footing. Please don't make her suffer for a misunderstanding. As a man. That phrase again. I stared at the screen, then forwarded it to Linda without commentary. Her reply was immediate. Paul, you've missed 18 years. Your $400 doesn't buy a seat at the table. If you want to help, send it to the school directly. Tom's out. That was your choice, not his. I don't know what surprised me more. The swiftness of her defense or the way her words carried more finality than mine ever could. That night, I sat alone in the den, the television off, the lights low. I listened to the sound of the house. Faint arguments upstairs, footsteps pacing, muffled sobs, slammed drawers. All the echoes of a structure realizing its foundation had shifted and was now tilting slowly under its own weight. I thought about the man I'd been 8 years ago. Optimistic, willing, eager to earn a place. A man who believed that presence alone would eventually be enough. That if you loved hard and gave consistently, the walls would come down. But I was wrong. You can't parent a child who doesn't want you to. And you can't rescue someone who clings to the very thing that failed them. Paul was their father by blood. I had never tried to compete. But I had hoped, foolishly, that effort would matter more than DNA. Didn't. The fallout came fast. Sarah announced she was taking a gap year. She framed it like an opportunity. Time to work, save, travel. But I saw it for what it was, a retreat. A pause born of consequence. She got a job at a coffee shop downtown. Laughed about it like it was temporary. But the shine wore off quickly. I overheard her one night on the phone, whispering to a friend. I didn't think he'd actually go through with it. I thought he was bluffing. Jason, on the other hand, went silent. For weeks. Then, one afternoon, he asked to talk. His car insurance had lapsed. He missed the notice. Didn't know what to do. His voice cracked when he asked for help. He didn't say sorry. Didn't look me in the eye. But he stood there nervous, unsure. exposed. I didn't gloat. I didn't lecture. I told him to bring the paperwork to the kitchen table. We went through it together, step by step. No accusations. No commentary. Just help. The next week, he mowed the lawn without being asked. Refilled the gas in the mower. Small things, but they felt different. He didn't say thank you, but he didn't have to. Something had shifted. By fall, both kids were enrolled at a local state university. Not their dream schools. Not New York. Not California. But close. Manageable. Real. They balanced jobs and loans, learned what FAFSA didn't teach, how to stretch $50 across a week, how to compare prices at the grocery store, how to plan around limitations. And me? I started living again. Linda and I took weekend trips. Nothing big, just drives out to the mountains or down to the coast. We stopped planning our lives around other people's futures. The house was quieter, lighter, not because the kids were gone, but because the expectation that I would carry everything without thanks had finally broken. One evening, an envelope came in the mail, from their old high school. Inside, a handwritten note from the guidance counselor. Tom, I just wanted to thank you. Your decision, though difficult, taught them a lesson no classroom ever could. Respect and gratitude aren't inherited. They're earned. What you did took courage, and they needed to see it. I read it twice, then folded it and slid it into the back of my drawer. Not because I needed validation, but because for the first time in years, someone had acknowledged what it cost to carry this family alone. Later that night, Linda sat beside me on the porch, the summer air soft and quiet around us. She didn't say anything, just reached over and held my hand. For a moment, I let myself believe something might still be salvaged. Not the family I thought I was building, but maybe something smaller, something honest, something earned. That Thanksgiving was the first one where the house didn't feel like a stage set. No forced performances, no passive-aggressive comments, no glances at Linda like she was the referee in a game I never agreed to play. Just the four of us, same dining table, same plates, same turkey. Linda always overcooked by 15 minutes. But something was different, quieter. Jason arrived early, helped set the table. No headphones in. He asked if I needed the leaf in the table extended. I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't know, but because I couldn't remember the last time he offered to help without being asked. Caught me off guard. Sarah came later, carrying a pie she said she made herself. Linda whispered to me that it was store-bought. I didn't care. She brought something that meant more than anyone in the room realized. Dinner was small talk. Weather, classes, new coworkers. They asked about my job. Not much, but enough. I watched them fumble through the effort like children learning how to say thank you in a second language. I didn't interrupt. I let them struggle. Halfway through the meal, Sarah set her fork down. I need to say something, she said. Jason looked up, tense. Linda froze, wineglass halfway to her lips. Sarah turned to me. Her voice didn't shake, but her hands did. She kept them in her lap. I was wrong, she said. About what I said. About how I treated you. The room didn't move. I was a brat. Selfish. Entitled. All of it. I didn't think you'd really stop helping, because I thought you had to help. Like it was your job. She paused, blinked fast. I didn't see you. Not really. You were just there, paying for everything, fixing everything. I guess I thought that was just what men did. I didn't think about what it cost you. Linda reached out to touch her arm, but Sarah pulled her hand back. This is mine. I need to say it. She looked at me then. Full eye contact. First time in months. You didn't owe us anything, but you gave everything, and we threw it in your face. Silence. Even Jason didn't move. Sarah reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a folded letter. She slid it across the table toward me. I wrote it down, she said. I wanted to get it right. I didn't touch it. Not yet. Not because I didn't want to read it, but because I needed her to finish, to say it out loud. I'm sorry, she said. Not with tears. Not with theatrics. Just a plain sentence that landed harder than anything else that year. I mean it. she added. Jason cleared his throat, looked away, then back. I do too, he said. I was awful to you. I thought I was standing up for something. Like Dad deserved loyalty. But he wasn't even around. You were. He looked down at his plate. I just didn't want to admit it. That you were more of a father than he ever was. No one spoke after that. Not for a while. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't healing. It was acknowledgement. That was all I ever wanted. After dinner, Sarah helped with the dishes. Jason took the trash out without being told. Linda didn't speak much. Just watched all of it like a woman seeing a ghost come back to life. Later, Sarah handed me her letter again. I took it this time. She said, I don't expect anything to change. I just needed to tell the truth. I nodded. She hugged me then. Not one of those light, awkward hugs you give a relative out of obligation. No, this one was full. Long, solid. Like she was holding on to something she had almost lost. I didn't hug her back right away. My arms hung at my sides, unsure, still armored from years of rejection. Then they moved, slowly, carefully, and I held my daughter, not by blood, but finally by choice, hers. Jason shook my hand when they left. Not a casual slap, a real one, firm, intentional. He looked me in the eye. Thank you, he said, for not bailing, even when we deserved it. I watched them drive away. The porch lights flickered against the early cold. Leaves covered the driveway. The wind moved through the trees like it was whispering something I couldn't quite hear. Linda came up behind me. I didn't think they had it in them, she said. I didn't respond. I wasn't ready to speak. She touched my back. Not a pat. Not a request. Just contact. Human. Wordless. We stood there until the tail lights disappeared. That night, I read Sarah's letter. It wasn't long, but every sentence carried weight. She wrote about the birthday I took her hiking, even though she hated the cold, and how I carried her on my shoulders when she twisted her ankle. She remembered the way I used to leave her sticky notes on her mirror before big tests. You've got this. We're proud of you. She signed it, Love, your daughter. If you'll still have me. I didn't cry. I'm not a man who cries often. But my hands shook as I folded the letter back up and placed it in the same drawer where I kept the counselor's note. I sat at the table for a long time, thinking, remembering, letting myself feel something I hadn't dared to feel in years. Maybe the cracks hadn't destroyed everything. Maybe they'd just made space for something stronger. The next morning, I got up before the sun, made coffee, fed the dog, sat on the porch and watched the light return to the world. I wasn't sure what would come next, but I knew this. I wasn't invisible anymore. They had seen me. They had said the words. That doesn't erase the past. It doesn't fill the years where I carried a family that saw me as replaceable. But it means something, because the truth is, forgiveness isn't a door you walk through. It's a weight someone lifts off your back, brick by brick. And for the first time, someone else had started carrying one. They say time heals. I don't believe that. Time just shows you what was real, what was fake, and what you can still salvage. And now, with nothing left to give and no more illusions to protect, I ask you, was I wrong to stop giving? Was I cruel to demand respect before offering help? Would you have kept pouring yourself into a hole that never said, thank you? Be honest. Because I was. And I lived in silence for 8 years because no one else would speak the truth.